Order in the court. Welcome to Am I the Asshole Court, where internet drama meets the courtroom. In today's case, we're putting one of Reddit's most controversial Am I the Asshole stories on trial. I'll be your judge, and sometimes even your skeptical bailiff, as we sort through the facts. We'll examine the evidence, hear both sides of the story, and determine whether the defendant was completely justified or absolutely out of line. At the end of the case, I'll deliver my verdict. But the final decision isn't mine alone. You'll be the jury. I want your ruling too. So take your seat, silence your objections, because court is now in session. Let's hear today's case. For wanting him to choose me over his son when his ex gave him an ultimatum. My ex ended our relationship because his toxic ex gave him an ultimatum. Get back with her and see his son daily, or stay with me and only see his son on holidays. I want him to choose us, but he caved to her. Am I the asshole? Me, 30, ex, 40, chose to sacrifice our relationship because his ex, whom he has been separated from for over 2 years, and who has even been in another relationship during that time, manipulated him using access to their son, ever since she found out he found someone else. She has constantly weaponized their child. She gave him an extreme ultimatum. Either he breaks up with me and gets back together with her so he can see their son daily, or he stays with me and she will restrict his custody to only seeing his son on holidays. He came to her because he couldn't bear the thought of missing out on his son's daily life, even though he is completely miserable now and living a life driven by fear and obligation. I am furious and heartbroken, and a part of me wishes he had chosen our relationship and fought through the legal system instead of folding to her emotional blackmail. Am I the asshole for being angry and wanting him to choose me and build our life together, even though it meant fighting for better custody arrangements instead of just giving in to her demands? So the ultimatum, choose your girlfriend or choose me and be able to see your son every day. If he chooses the girlfriend, he could still see his son, but only on holidays. And when this man made his choice, his girlfriend was absolutely devastated. But here's where things get complicated. Did this man really have his hands tied? Or did his ex girlfriend simply say out loud what he had been wanting all along? Because, in my humble opinion, if seeing your child was truly the priority and someone threatened to take away your daily access to that child, you fight for custody. You go to court. You establish your rights. You do whatever you legally can to make sure nobody gets to decide that your relationship with your child depends on who you're dating. So today we're asking, was the girlfriend wrong for being upset? Absolutely not. But was she refusing to accept what this man's decision was really telling her? Okay, baby, let's get into it. I'm not going to pretend that ultimatum is normal, healthy, or something I would personally defend. Using a child as leverage in an adult romantic situation? Absolutely not. A child is not a bargaining chip. A child is not a reward for getting back together with your ex. And a parent should not have to maintain a romantic relationship with someone just to have regular access to their child. That part, the ex girlfriend is dead wrong. However, and you knew there was a however, the boyfriend then makes his decision. He chooses the ex girlfriend. He chooses to go back to the mother of his child, and his current girlfriend is left heartbroken. She's angry, she's confused, and she wants to know, am I the asshole for being upset that he chose his ex over me? And my answer is no, you're not the asshole for being upset. You're allowed to be hurt. You're allowed to be disappointed. You're allowed to cry, scream into your pillow, call your best friend, eat a little ice cream, and ask yourself, what the hell just happened? But where I think you're starting to become a little bit of an asshole, just a little bit, is when you refuse to accept what his choice actually meant. Because, man, he chose her. And I don't mean the ultimatum made him choose her. I mean, I believe that underneath all this drama, he wanted to choose her. So let's examine the evidence. This man has a child with his ex girlfriend. She tells him he has two choices. Choice number one, stay with his current girlfriend and only see his son on holidays. Choice number two, get back together with her and see his son every day. Now, any responsible parent would obviously be terrified of losing daily access to their child. I understand that. I would never minimize that. But here's my question. Why was getting back together with the ex the only solution he was willing to pursue? Because if someone told me you either get back together with me or you only see your child on holidays, my next conversation would not be about romance. My next conversation would be with a lawyer. Because what do you mean I have to date you to be a parent? No. We are separating these two things immediately. You can be my child's mother or father. You do not automatically get to be my romantic partner. Those two things are completely different relationships. And if this man truly wanted to remain with his girlfriend while also being a daily part of his son's life, there were other steps he could have taken. He could have fought for custody. He could have pursued visitation rights. He could have worked towards a legal custody arrangement. He could have documented his involvement as a father. He could have refused to let one person's romantic ultimatum control his relationship with his child. But apparently, he didn't. Instead, he packed up emotionally and said, well, I guess I'm going back to my ex. And girlfriend, I need you to hear me when I say this. A man who truly wanted to stay with you would have fought for a way to stay with you. That does not mean he wouldn't fight for his son. Of course, he should fight for his son, but that's exactly my point. He can fight for his son without choosing his ex as a girlfriend. The fact that he apparently accepted those two options as the only option tells me something. And what it tells me is that on some level, going back to his ex was already something he wanted. Maybe he missed her. Maybe he wanted his family back together. Maybe he had never completely gotten over her. Maybe he wanted to try again for the sake of their child. Maybe the ultimatum simply gave him an excuse to do what he had been considering anyway. For whatever the reason, his actions made the choice. And this is where I think the girlfriend is struggling. She's treating this situation as if her boyfriend had absolutely no choice. As if he was standing there with a gun to his head emotionally and saying, I'm so sorry, babe. I have no choice, but I gotta go back to my ex. But I disagree. He had choices. None of them may have been easy, but he had choices. And the girlfriend needs to stop asking, why wasn't I enough? Because this isn't necessarily about whether she was enough. Sometimes a person leaves because they want something else. And that hurts. But we have got to stop twisting ourselves into emotional pretzels, trying to turn someone else's choice into a reflection of our worth. He didn't choose you. That does not automatically mean you're less beautiful, less lovable, less valuable, or somehow inferior to the ex. It simply means he wanted something different from what you were offering. And in this case, I believe what he wanted was his ex. Maybe the child was a part of the equation. Of course, his son was important. But if seeing his son every day was the only thing he cared about, then why didn't he fight to establish a permanent legal relationship with his child? Why was the solution to get back into a romantic relationship with the ex? Because, girlfriend, I think he wanted both. He wanted to be with the mother of his child, and he wanted to have his family together. And maybe he didn't have the courage to admit that until she gave him the ultimatum. Now let's play this into a courtroom cross examination. I'm the judge, of course. Sir, did you want to see your son every day? Boyfriend, yes. Absolutely understandable. Now, when your ex told you that you had to choose between your girlfriend and her, did you consider fighting for custody? Boyfriend, well, that's not a yes. Did you contact a lawyer? No. Did you investigate your legal rights as a father? No. Did you attempt to establish a formal custody agreement? No. But you did immediately consider getting back together with your ex? Yes. Ah, and there it is. Because that's what I want the girlfriend to understand. The child absolutely matters. The ultimatum was manipulative. The ex should not be using the child as leverage. All of that can be true at the same time. And it can also be true that this man saw an opportunity to return to a relationship he already wanted. Two things can be true at the same time. Now let's talk about the ex. Because don't think she's walking out this courtroom without getting questioned too. Ma'am, mother of the child, ex-girlfriend, what exactly are we doing? You do not get to say, date me, or you only see your son on holidays. That is not healthy co-parenting. That is not putting the child first. And frankly, if the child is old enough to understand what's happening, imagine the message being sent. Daddy can only be around if mommy and daddy are dating. What happens if they get back together and break up again? Does dad lose access all over again? Does this child become the relationship referee? Does the child have to worry every time the parents argue that one parent might disappear? Absolutely not. The child's relationship with their father should not depend on whether the parents are romantically involved. So, yes, ex girlfriend, you are wrong for the ultimatum. But here's the part that might surprise people: her behavior does not erase his responsibility for his decision. He is still an adult. He still made a choice. And girlfriend, you cannot spend the next 6 months blaming the ex for stealing a man who willingly walked back into her arms. Because he had to walk there himself. Now, the girlfriend isn't wrong for being hurt. Now, let me be clear because I don't want to sound heartless. I don't think this woman is the asshole for being upset. I would be upset too. Imagine thinking you're in a relationship and then suddenly someone from his past says, actually choose. And he doesn't choose you. That is painful. Especially if he spent time telling you he loved you. Especially if he made you feel secure. Especially if you believe the relationship had a future. You have every right to be devastated. You can mourn the relationship. You can be angry. You can feel betrayed. You can even question whether he was emotionally honest with you. What you cannot do is demand that he continues to choose you after he has already shown you that he won't. You cannot argue someone into loving you the way you deserve to be loved. And you cannot keep standing in front of a closed door yelling, why won't you open? Sometimes the answer is simple because the person on the other side locked it. And as painful as that is, your job is not to break the door down. Your job is to turn around and find the exit. And the part that she doesn't want to accept is he had no choice. His ex forced him to leave me. Because if that's the story, then she doesn't have to confront the more painful possibility. He wanted to leave. And listen, I understand why that's difficult. It's much easier to have a villain. It's easier to point at the ex and say she manipulated him. She forced him. She ruined our relationship. And again, the ex absolutely behaved badly, but manipulation only explains so much. At some point, the boyfriend made a decision, and the girlfriend has to accept that. Because acceptance is not saying what happened was fair. Acceptance is saying, I may not like the choice you made, but I recognize that you made it. And that is the only way you start moving forward. So, is the girlfriend the asshole? No, but with conditions. She's not the asshole for being upset. She's not the asshole for feeling heartbroken. She's not the asshole for thinking the ex's ultimatum was manipulative. Because honestly, it was. However, she becomes the asshole if she continues refusing to accept that her boyfriend made his own choice. Stop saying, she made him leave me. No, she gave him an ultimatum, a terrible ultimatum, but he chose what to do with it. And from where I'm sitting, I believe he wanted his ex all along. Or at the very least, he wanted to try again with her. Because a man who genuinely wanted to remain with you and maintain a relationship with his child would, in my opinion, exploit every possible way to do both, especially legally, especially when his relationship with his child is at stake. So, to the girlfriend, you're allowed to be hurt, but don't chase him. Don't compete with her. Don't audition for a position he already gave away. And most importantly, don't sit around waiting for him to realize he made the wrong choice. Because whether he comes back or not is no longer your business. He chose. Now you choose. Choose yourself. And to the boyfriend, I sentence you to taking accountability for your own decisions. Stop acting like you were simply a helpless passenger in this situation. You made a choice. Stand on it. And to the ex girlfriend, I sentence you to learning that co parenting and romantic relationships are not the same thing. Your child's relationship with their father should not be used as a prize for getting back together with you. And finally, to the girlfriend, I sentence you to emotional acceptance and immediate release. No more trying to decode why. No more competing. No more begging a man to choose you when he has already made his selection. Cry if you need to. Be angry if you need to. But eventually, get up, fix your crown, and keep it moving. Because the biggest mistake you can make is allowing someone who didn't choose you to keep occupying all the space in your life. And that's my verdict, ladies and gentlemen. But now I want to hear from you, the jury. Do you think the boyfriend truly had no choice? Or do you think he wanted his ex all along and you seeing his son as the reason to go back? Was the ex wrong for giving him the ultimatum? And was the girlfriend wrong for being upset? Or just wrong for refusing to accept his choice? Drop your verdict in the comments below. And remember, keep the comments cute, classy, and courtroom appropriate. Until next time, court is adjourned.